Hey everyone, welcome back to the arena. I'm Mike David, joined by Matt Kovatchis, and once again a very special guest. If you're new here, welcome to our arena, a space in which we delve into deep conversations around people's life stories and all things health and wellness. These conversations are deep and are meant to inspire others to tap into their own vulnerabilities. I'll pass it over to Matt shortly to say hello and intro our guest. Before I do, it's love and appreciation to those who are listening. And if you know anyone who is not listening, do send this conversation their way if you think it could be of value. Over to you, Matt.
What's up? What up? We got another fun guest here. This is Joey Roselli, or as probably a lot of you know him, Joey Wellness, on Instagram and TikTok, where he's amassed a following of greater than, I'm probably low on it, 2 million people. He's a health and wellness content creator, nutrition student. And we're really going to dive into all things diet, nutrition, food, and how it's all interconnected to your mental health. So without further ado, Joey, who is Joey? Joey Wellness, Joey Roselli, whatever you want to call yourself for the rest of this conversation, and why ultimately do you do what you do?
Thanks for having me, gentlemen. You can call me Joey. The last name doesn't matter. We're all friends here, so it's all great. So again, thanks for having me on. And I do what I do because people need to learn, and we need a lot more awareness than we think, right? There's so many foods out there, so many drinks out there that are so easily accessible, arguably too accessible, right? And that falls into the trap of convenience. And so we're drinking a lot of these drinks and eating a lot of these foods without any awareness, often without any consciousness, quote unquote. And so that's where things get out of hand. That's where our health starts to fall on the negative side of things. So I like to show what's inside food products. I like to show how much sugar is in a drink. I like to present awareness in a lot of unhealthy items out there, but in a very fun way, in a very entertaining way, and in a way that a 9-year-old can understand, right? So a lot of nutrition information out there is amazing. However, a lot of it is not applicable to a 5-year-old, right? So we want to teach everyone what's inside a bag of chips or what's inside a Coca-Cola from 5 years old all the way to 85 years old. So by doing so in a visual way, there's no way that you're not going to understand.
And so I watched the Gatorade one this morning, and you mentioned that you used to crush Gatorades as a kid.
Yes.
And so my first question is, at what point did you start to become aware of what was in your typical on-the-shelf foods, and then at what point did you actually start to really care about maybe making changes?
Yeah, good question. I didn't realize what I was drinking or eating until, I want to say, early 20s, 20, 21, 22, 23. I suffered from severe acne, both facial and back acne. They call it backne, but anyway, facial and back acne up until from ages, I want to say 14, 15, all the way to 23, 24 is really when it all phased out. Unfortunately, I did take the easy route out, the easy way out of clearing my acne. That was by going on a medication called Accutane, which personally I don't recommend. Yes, it clears out the acne, but there are a lot of heavy side effects that come along with it that, yes, I was told, I was given the awareness about them. However, I just didn't care at the time. All I cared about was my facial appearance. That's another topic we can get into later if you want. And even though it's like, yeah, the acne cleared out by going on Accutane, but my diet was still the same of drinking a lot of alcohol, eating a lot of high processed, high sugary foods, ultra processed foods, sleeping in late, you go to bed late, kind of living the maximum extent of the typical college life, typical college student life. And it's like, okay, well, now that the acne's cleared out, what else is going on? So that just goes to show that it's okay. Well, then I start watching videos on how Pringles are made. I start watching videos on how, surplus amounts of sugar are contributing to our mental health, contributing to things that we're not even seeing on the outside of our body, right? And so you just start going down a rabbit hole of watching different videos, seeing different pictures, reading different books, watching different YouTube videos. And so it's like a lot of people argue about this, but it's when there's something going on outside of your body that you can see visibly that's a red flag of something going on inside of your body. However, I was just ignoring that. So it's just really about taking one step and going down a rabbit hole. So I didn't stop drinking and eating this stuff until, I want to say, again, early mid-20s. And it was just up until the point where it's like, okay, well, my acne's clear, but what else is going on? Why am I still feeling like crap? Why am I still waking up groggy? Why am I still falling asleep in class? And why am I not performing well at the gym or performing well in soccer? And so, again, just go down that rabbit hole and it's like, wait a sec, okay, well, I shouldn't wake up and have Quaker brown sugar oatmeal for breakfast. No wonder I'm falling asleep in class at 8:30 in the morning. No wonder I'm waking up feeling like crap after eating a Big Mac combo and Popeyes for dinner. There's no wonder. And again, the more you start to realize, the further down the rabbit hole you go, and the more steps you start to take about cutting stuff out and eating less of and eating more of real whole foods. And that's where the learning process began.
And so, what have you noticed as you started to make some of these small shifts in terms of just how you feel more holistically, like in terms of, you've mental health, mental clarity, your physical health, like what are some of the changes? Why should someone be inspired to do this? And I want to follow up by saying, I know my dad's going to listen to this, so I'm going to call him out on this. I want him to hear this. My dad is very healthy. He works out a lot. I mean, more than any other 65, 64, 63-year-old, whatever you are, Dad, can't think right now, in the moment, or than most people. And he eats, he weighs out all his portion sizes, eats fairly clean, like very clean for the most part. I've pushed him to your point, go down the rabbit hole a little bit more, try to buy organic where you can. Some of those other things maybe that are one step further than for the average person, but like what? And his answer is, well, I'm healthy enough. Like I don't need to do anymore. And so, what would you say to someone like that? And what are some of the incremental changes that you felt?
To answer the first question of what I felt was, there, regardless of what I say, I really tell people that at the end of the day, you really don't know how much greener the grass is on the other side until you're there. I swear, like you can hear all the testimonials and all the stories you want, but until you're on the other side of that grass, you don't get it. Because like you said, you're waking up with a clear head, you're waking up with energy, you're waking up with the ready to go motivation, that grit. And you want to eat healthy because you know how it'll make you feel good, right? You'll perform better at the gym. You'll just do better in school. It's even at work, and you just feel like you're on top of your stuff. However, it's like you can't push people over the edge of the cliff. You can. It just might not work, or it might work. And so for me, it's like because I wasn't pushed and I kind of pushed myself. That's just my way of going about it for others, right? It's like, here, guys, I was given this information through X, Y, and Z platforms, so I'm doing the same now by reciprocating that information in other ways, and hopefully that can push people, that can help people push themselves. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, so, and then to the second part, what do you say to people? And I understand in terms of like people have to want to change, like no one's going to make themselves change, but just generally speaking, what do you say to people? Well, I'm healthy enough, Joey. Like I don't have to go organic or whatever it might be. Like I'm good enough.
Hey, I have two answers to that. Number one is there is no one magic formula. So what works for one person might not work for the other. So in the case of your dad, of him being, like you said, he works out like a beast and he's healthy and eats whole foods at the age of 64, 65. I mean, I wouldn't change the formula, to be honest with you. Yeah, would he be better off maybe having more water? Would he be better off eating organic spinach versus non-organic? But at the end of the day, I'd rather him have spinach at dinner than M&M's.
That's true. Yeah, that's a
Popeyes.
good point.
So it's like, it depends how you look at it. The perspective really matters. And so it's like, it's a tough one, especially for the older generation. Like even my parents are in the same age group, and they're a little more cemented than we are, right? Because they get to a point where it's like, oh well, I'm X amount of time into my lifespan. Let's say 3/4, knock on wood, but maybe a little more. But let's say I'm 3/4 into my life. It's like, well, this has been working all my life. Now, if he's starting to experience, if there are symptoms that he's experiencing that are red flags, then that's when we can start to raise questions or start to change the diet or the lifestyle, right? If he's saying, oh, I'm waking up and my knees are always weak, or, I can't fall asleep at night, or I feel so sluggish in the afternoon. I start to look at that stuff, or it's like, oh, I'm getting rashy after having certain drinks, or, that's where I start to raise flags. Of course, we want to live a preventative lifestyle where we don't want to wait until negative things happen. However, I don't see a point in changing his formula, right? He's eating real whole foods. He's nailing it. I mean, you're saying he's even weighing his food, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, Dad. All right, Dad, you win. You win.
Yeah. I was going to say, this is going to be tough. He's a bulletproof guy when it comes to that stuff. But going back to maybe more people in our age demographic, I think a lot of people, they'll learn, this is bad for you, this is good for you. And there's going to be some people, and I'll speak for myself, where you become aware before you're capable or energized to actually start making changes. And usually, what I've found for myself is that my inability or my inconsistency or my lack of discipline around making some of those healthier changes really stemmed back to some of the other deeper stuff that I was struggling with in my past. And I say past, like over the last 2 years. So sometimes it's not just the awareness piece. So I'm just curious for you, like as you started to make any changes, were there any other struggles in your life that, you had going on? I know you kind of mentioned your facial appearance, but what were you struggling with throughout your life that you noticed had some sort of connectivity or relationship to your ability to make some of these, rather drastic life transformation related changes?
That's a great question. But besides the facial appearance or the outer appearance, I mean, that kind of is connected and linked to confidence, especially for an older teen, even a young teen or a young adult, or any aged adult actually. Besides the appearance, the confidence was definitely my social skills. I felt a little bit out of the box sometimes when I started making these changes, right? I felt a little bit disconnected to my friends because my friends and I really bonded over going out to eat junk food and getting together and doing bum stuff and eating junk food and, quote unquote, wasting time. I mean, we were also stuck in COVID at the time, so we didn't have much else to do. But the big one was definitely the social settings, the social skills afterwards, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm feeling better. I want to go to the gym more, or I want to go for a morning walk, or I want to go see the sunlight in the morning. And you just kind of feel lonely doing that because the people I was surrounded with at the time didn't understand or didn't want to join. They started to understand a little more. I'd never push it down their throats. I would just kind of show by example, and they would learn in some sort of ways. But it was still difficult because it's like, okay, well, how do I be on the same playing field or the same boat as my friends now, right? Am I sailing away on my own, or am I staying with them? Do they come on? Do I go back with them? So I struggled with that. I know it doesn't seem as big or as major, but it really sucks being 22 years old and, you're living downtown with your buddies and you can't really relate on certain things anymore. And, they're getting together every night playing video games and eating food. And I'm going in, going out, going in, going out. And it's like, well, I know I feel better doing this, but I feel better doing this for the first 5 minutes, instant gratification, which is playing video games and eating junk food. So, honestly, I never took control of that situation. The way it really changed and the way we drifted on our own parts was after we finished and after we graduated from college. We all went back to our homes and we stayed connected. We stayed friends. We still see each other every couple of times a year, once a year, but it's very different now that we're much older. But at the time, it sucked.
Yeah, and there's probably a reliance that you have on that sense of belonging and acceptance with that circle that can be extra difficult to move away from. And so, were there any rational thoughts that would come up around talking you out of going down your path and moving away from that crowd? What were some of those thoughts and what were they saying to you in your head that maybe attempted to pull you back in? Because I'm sure there are people that are at that point right now that they're looking to continue to move in their own direction and can get deceived by their own thoughts. on not trusting that path. And maybe they don't have that support system. So I would love for them to be able to relate to whatever was going on through your head.
Yeah, for sure. My thoughts were definitely like, how do I relate to them, or how do we stay friends? Or I just felt weird because I felt like I was trying to be the goody two shoes or the teacher's pet, right? That's how I perceived it. I don't know if they thought of it like that or saw it like that. So my thoughts are just like, oh, am I, like, do they look at me differently? Do they look at me in a weird context? Do they still like me, or do they still want to hang out with me? Am I being the party pooper, right? And that got even worse, actually, being the party pooper, or I thought I was being the party pooper because I stopped drinking alcohol at a certain point too. So, and I just felt like I couldn't have fun at some point. So it's like I felt like the odd guy out often. And yeah, there were many times where I went back in or went back to the old ways. And again, the setting was difficult because we lived together or we lived nearby. And we're during the pandemic, so we're just stuck indoors all the time. Whereas now it's different, or if you're living away from your friends or in a separate household, it's a little easier because you have a little more control, a little more flexibility. They don't know what you're doing day to day. And so if you're seeing each other, twice a year and you're eating like that, I wouldn't break your head over it, but maybe you can put some limits on it. But yeah.
I think it speaks to, you are the product of your environment, and it's a lot easier when I used to live with a couple guys not too long ago, and I've already eaten very, very healthy, but I'm having to use willpower to resist chips and cookies on the counter every night, and I've lived by myself for the first time in my life since June, and it's just made all the difference. And like, I'm not even tempted because it's not there, and I never wanted it in the first place. So I think it does speak to being a product of your environment, and if you really are serious about, one of the best tips I could give is just don't put the things in your home that you don't ultimately want to have, that you're going to be tempted to maybe eat when you are maybe feeling a little bit like emotionally drained or more stressed, when you're more inclined to consume some of that stuff. So I guess with that, what are some like quick health swaps, quick tips that people that are listening to this have? Because I think today there's an overflow of information around your health, your nutrition, your diet, your sleep, all this biohacking that it can be, toxins in the environment, that it can become overwhelming to someone that's just starting out. Like, I don't know where to start, so I'm just not going to start at all. So when it comes to nutrition, like, what are some of those quick health swaps that you would suggest for people?
And it's great that we live in a time that there are tons of swaps. There's swaps for being Doritos. I mean, Siete chips, they make a nacho cheese flavor, but they're using actual cheese. So does Doritos, but there's a lot less ingredients in Siete chips than there are in Doritos. So there are swaps for everything. There's even swaps for goldfish. I think it's from maybe Simple Mills, the company. Anyway, so yeah, I know these swaps cost a little more money, but I tell people, in any situation, you can get together with your buddies every Saturday night. You don't have to indulge in the food that's presented. It's there, it's tempting, but you don't have to. And so often, how I felt a few years ago with my buddies was that I had to, right? I was buying the snacks with them, I was buying the food with them, so I had to eat. But it's like, again, different setting because we live together. But now where it's like when we get together and there's a bowl of chips or there's a box of Oreo cookies, yeah, it looks great, but I don't have to eat it. Would I like to? Sure, I might have one. Probably not. but the swaps they're everywhere. There's you're buying a bag of Lay's original chips for, let's say, $4. For $1.50 extra, you can get the Siete chips that's fried in avocado oil, or you got Rosie's chips that are fried in 100% grass-fed beef tallow. So it's like you're not going to spend an extra $2 for a better source of chips or a better ingredient, a better for you bag of chips.
And why is that better? Like, why should people make that swap? Because I think it's very easy to be like, well, I don't really feel different in the moment whether I have a bag of Doritos or a bag of Siete chips. So like, why should people start to make those swaps?
You said the key right there, Matt. You said we won't feel different in the moment. Correct. In the first 5 minutes. But tell me how you feel 3 hours later, right? I'm not saying to eat an entire bag, but eating some chips, some real like potatoes that have been sliced, fried in beef tallow with a nice pinch of sea salt, like you're gonna feel a lot more satiated after eating a few chips. And the word satiated means that you're gonna feel satisfied, you're gonna feel full, right? It's gonna like complete you in a way. Whereas when you eat Doritos, you're gonna want to finish the entire bag. So it's just about having foods that are better for you, that are actually contributing to your health rather than taking away, right? And we can go for anything. It's even for chicken wings, for example. It's like having chicken wings that come in a box that are frozen and prepared, and there's like 50 ingredients in them, versus buying a pack of frozen chicken wings raw at Costco, having them thaw out and marinating them yourself, cooking them and baking them. It's like the care and time and attention and love that goes into it, along with the ingredients that you know you're putting into it, is going to be a lot better for you than a box of frozen chicken wings. Regardless of the macros. I know the macros play a role. I know people care about that. But it just try it yourselves. Really try it yourself. And for anything, you're going to feel better 3 hours later. It's not about the first 5 minutes, that instant gratification, because you won't feel a difference in that moment. There's so much dopamine going on, you won't even notice. But tell me later, the aftermath.
So for you, and you're a content creator, and with content creators and create the content that they create, I think sometimes they give off this impression of perfection. And I want to understand the true Joey behind the scenes. Like when you have a craving, you mentioned like, hey, I might have an Oreo at a party, right? And I think it's so important that we humanize these content creators, these influencers, because something I had noticed for myself once again was that as I started my health journey, I got this impression or this idea that I had to be perfect. I knew the information. I wanted to love myself. I wanted to make the right decisions that were in alignment with what I value. But I still crave a burrito, And so I'm just wondering, like, how do you think about balancing everything you know, everything you represent, everything you stand for in your content space, and ultimately what you really value for your health? But also, I don't know, maybe it's Papa Kovatchis in my ear a little bit here, like, hey, sometimes good enough is good enough, and like sometimes you have to live a little, right? As a cliche. That's like the angel and double in my head right now, and I'm just curious how you make sense of those dialogues.
Yeah, the perfectionism sucks, because a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people portray you and put you in a frame or in a box, or they pigeonhole you, seeing that you're 100% perfect, and I'm not 100% perfect. Even though I might portray it that way, or it might come off that way, it's like, well, I'm just not live streaming 100% of the time. I'm not documenting everything I do in my life, So it's like, yeah, like I said before, I will have an Oreo cookie if it's there, maybe, but it's like I'm having one. I'm not having 6 like I used to. I used to have like half a box sometime with my buddies, and just because, again, the reason why I'm able to better control myself is because of all the experiences I've had. So I know how I feel after eating 6 Oreos. You feel like crap 30 minutes later. And then it's like, the less you start to eat of these foods, the more you don't crave them, and the more you notice a difference when you eat them in a surplus amount, right? It's like the more you, like, if you eat Popeyes every single day, you might not notice how you feel because you're stuck in a loop, you're stuck in a cycle. But you start cutting that in half, and you start cutting that in half, and that in half, and that in half, the more you drift away from it, go back to eating the way you did when you first began, which is every single day. You're going to stop after the second day. That's 100%. 100%, because you're just going to feel like crap. Your stomach's going to be upside down. You're going to have no energy. Your gas tank is empty. And so to answer your question, I'm not perfect. Do I live a little? It depends how you define that. Or with Papa Kovatchis, did I say correctly, Kovatchis?
Yeah, you got it. You nailed it.
Papa Kovatchis.
I love that.
he says good enough. So it depends how he measures it, right? The way I measure good enough, or the way I measure balance, quote unquote, is like I eat fairly healthy and fairly well 90 to 95% of the time. So that 5-10%, I'm not even thinking about it, because it's not doing much to me. compared to how it did
Yeah.
in the past, where it was like that was the majority.
And that caught in the loop cycle piece that you had mentioned is so true. And I love the way that you framed it as the more scarce you make it, the more you notice the impact it has when you do have it. I mean, I went probably 60 days straight of like perfect, and then that was about as perfect as I could be, earlier this year, of like no seed oils, nothing processed, the whole 9 yards of what everyone's preaching these days, or we hope everyone's preaching these days. And I had a craving, and I got some wings. I got some wings from like a food, like a Wingstop, I think it was. And shout out Wingstop, I like their food. But like, I couldn't even finish the meal. It was like the first time I was like reintroducing some food that I would always eat. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I had to throw out food. Like I could not finish it. I felt awful in the middle of that meal. Physically, not like shameful or guilty, but like physically felt so bad about eating that food. And that's so true that like you really do start to notice the difference when you wean off something for a long time and then reintroduce it perhaps suddenly too.
I also want to say, like, to maybe answer these questions from my perspective, I really think about, I've gone on a whole food journey, which I've talked about. I used to restrict like a madman and then binge like a madman on the weekends and alcohol, all this stuff. And I think for me, I look at the underlying driver of the quote unquote craving, like what's really there. Because to your point, Joey, I eat pretty darn clean 95% of the time. And it's not because I feel like I have to, it's because I truly love how I feel. Like you said, waking up with energy, motivated, inspired. I love that. And I know if I don't consume, if I'm, burying my face in gosh knows what, I don't feel that way. And I also like what you said around living a little, because everyone, I'll get that a lot. We'll just live a little. But define live a little for me, because I feel like I'm living. Like, I don't get the same satisfaction of eating the way that I used to eat, that I did. And when I actually peel back the onion a little bit, the times when I would binge the most are the times when actually like I was struggling most mentally, or I was the most tired, I was fatigued, I was stressed. And so maybe just to kind of loop into a question here for you, how does our stress, how does maybe some of that stuff we don't think about impact our food choices and our ability to maybe regulate the decisions that we make?
Oh man, almost all the time. Think about when you're stressed, and in any situation, right? You're gonna resort to something. It might not be food. It might be biting your nails. It might be pacing around. It might be going mute, or it might be binging or just watching TV, and you kind of lose consciousness a bit. So I think the stress factor is huge, because when we're stressed, we forget what's there to fill our tank, right? And so often we skip a meal. I'll do that very often. Unfortunately, it's not great. It's because it keeps me inconsistent, and it makes my weight fluctuate actually. Whereas when it's a busy week and there's a lot of work on the table, I'll skip lunch or I'll skip breakfast. I'll just get right to work. And so, but I find that makes me more stressed, because I feel like I'm running on empty a little bit. And so when you're running on empty, we're like sharks, or I treat myself like a shark. When a shark stops moving, they sleep, right? So the same thing with me. It's like when I stop moving, when there's a lot of work on the table, and I get to a moment of, okay, let me rest for a little bit, that's when I'm starving. And I realize, wow, I haven't eaten. I'm so hungry. And I'll go through the cupboards, or I'll go through whatever's there, right? Chips, crackers, pickles. It's like, okay, they might not be the unhealthiest treats, but they could be if they're there, right? If there's croissants, if there's pastries and stuff like that, I'll devour that stuff, because I haven't eaten for the past 2 meals. And so the stress brought me to a point of not realizing that I haven't properly nourished myself. And then when that moment stops, it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to eat whatever's in front of me. And then it's like, okay, well, it's not a proper balanced meal. It's not a consistent meal. And then I'm going to feel like even more crap afterwards, because I ate all these carbs. And so then I'm crashing 30 minutes later, 2 hours later, and then I can't properly finish my work. So
And so I want to also go back to one thing you said around, I think you said around the preparing of food.
Oh, yeah.
But you had mentioned there's a difference between, I don't know if it was eating out, but versus the care, time, attention, and love when you're preparing a meal. Can you just describe what that is? Because, for me, man, like after this, I've got sweet potatoes cut up, ready. I'm gonna throw them in the air fryer, which I don't, and then I'm gonna cook a night like some ground beef, and I cannot wait because I'm gonna spend 20 minutes doing all that and putting so much love and attention into it, and then I've worked out, and it's like it makes it like so fulfilling to create and just eat a nutritious meal. So I would just love, that's my perspective, but I'd love your perspective because I thought it was so interesting how you said care, time, attention, and love in terms of food.
No, dude, you nailed it. Look how good you feel. Look how much you want to eat this food. Like that's a sign. That's literally one of the after effects, one of the byproducts of eating well. And so when I say care, time, attention, and love into your food, that means cooking. Everyone should know how to cook, right? And then I get a lot of messages and I laugh. It's funny, or I see a lot of videos of what the guys saying, like, don't waste your time cooking because that takes time away from you from making money. And so it's like I find that funny because it's like I get it, but I don't get it because it's like, yes, cooking is time consuming, but it's so important because you know what you're putting into your body, right? And so actually one of my holistic doctors, my naturopaths, he told me this example and I never forgot it. He said, you can have a cake from a store, you can have a cake from home, and they might have roughly the same amount of calories, roughly the same amount of sugar, same amount of fat, etc. But he's like, the grocery store bought cake has probably 40 ingredients, and the one at home has probably 8 ingredients. And he's like, that's the importance there, is that even in your brain, there's production that's happening with you preparing the cake, you knowing what's going into this cake, right? So it's like, he's like, it goes down to a deeper like tissue level, to a cell level, where they're being receptive now that, okay, like there's like a mother nature connection happening here, that you made this cake, you put time into it, you know what goes into it, and so that's going to do a lot more to your body in a positive way versus the grocery store bought one. So it's really just about learning how to cook, because when you learn how to cook, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, which is great, and you're going to know what tastes good for you. I'm not saying to douse your broccoli in a stick of butter, but it's like you'll just start to appreciate flavors a lot more and start to appreciate nutrition a lot more.
So how have your values evolved? Because you mentioned somebody who might value making money, and the way they think about orienting their life is totally different. I know somebody out there who really values macros and physical physique, and it really doesn't matter what the ingredients are so long as certain ratios are in alignment. So as you've gone through this like journey over the last handful of years, how have your values, as we know Joey, how have those evolved over time?
They still evolve over time, right? Just this past year, just in 2024, I've valued a lot more my relationship with God and with Jesus, to be honest with you. I think I've put a lot more time into that. I start reading the Bible. That's been the first thing I do every morning. My girlfriend and I, we read the Bible together. We listen to a prayer before going to bed. So, and it's like,
Why?
I wasn't doing... Sorry,
Why
go ahead.
that? Yeah, no, why? Just curious why.
Why? Like why we've gotten closer to God and to Jesus? Why? Great question. It's the first time being asked that.
Why not?
Why not? For sure.
Well, I mean it more from a place of not challenging it.
No,
More
no,
from a
for
place
sure.
of, have you reflected on why God or Jesus has become kind of more prominent as a part of this journey big picture?
Great question. It's like when you start reading the Bible, and it also opened me up after watching The Chosen. It's a series, and it's essentially it's a series about Jesus and the process and the journey and story of Jesus. And it's like it just opened up to me that that yes, like that is the way, like he's the way, the life, and the truth. That is the way of life. So above all, from what I've been learning and how I've evolved, it's above all seeking the kingdom of heaven, seeking God, then my health, and then making money, right? And when I say making money, I don't mean like Andrew Tate grinding 9 to 5 stuff. Like that's fine, that's great. But I mean, I'm just like that's not my obsession. It's like I look at making money as a byproduct of the value and the help I provide to others. It's like, sure, it's just an exchange. It's just a currency. Like I used to value money a lot more. I used to like be so overly obsessed with it, and it's like it's just that's not the number one thing. It's like God doesn't look at that. God doesn't look at your bank account. When you leave this planet, you don't leave with your checkings account, your savings account. So it's like, but you're here for an X amount of time. We don't know how much time we're here for, and so it's like, how can we be the best we can be for this time that we're here? That's by serving others. That's by serving God. That's by treating your temple, your literally your home. This is your home. Treating it the best you can be. You want to live in a healthy, strong, beautiful home. And then it's like we live in a world that, yes, in order to get things and to exchange things and to give things, it requires money. Money is the currency.
Joey, wild guess.
Yeah.
Are you Italian by
Yes,
chance?
I am. Yes.
Yeah. I'm curious because we talked about your friends, and now that we're talking about your values, I also have grown up in an Italian household, and there are cultural influences around what we grow up valuing, and I'm not saying every Italian family is the same. I'm not going to even pretend to ignore generalizations there, but just. Can you speak to maybe how your relationship with your family has evolved in your journey, and maybe tie it back to some values as well?
My family was actually before me. They were the first ones to start changing their diets. Yeah, it started, I want to say maybe 10, 15 years ago when my mom and my sisters started to change their diets. They started to seek the natural path that I seek now, and started, going for organic stuff and a lot, less processed stuff. And as Italians, we had pasta every single day, and pasta's fine, but the quality of pasta matters for sure, and the quantity as well, right? But pasta was our main dish very often, which is fine. I mean, as a kid, I was putting it to use. I was definitely using those carbs, but that's all there was often. And so we started making those shifts. But I was a kid. I'm the baby of the family, so I didn't really care about that. I just wanted to eat. Like, give me a couple of steaks, give me the chicken nuggets, give me the bagel bites, all that stuff, the pizza pockets, and But by them going through their changes, it kind of helped me realize it much later, right? So when I started to seek the natural path, that's when everything started to click from the past. It's like, oh, okay, I know why now she stopped buying the boxed macaroni and cheese, or I know why now she stopped buying the boxed prepared rice. You start to understand and realize that. Of course, we still have our traditions. We still make sauce, tomato sauce every year. We still get together at holidays. But even the holidays have changed. Like, we used to have lasagna every Christmas Eve, and now it's changed to like just having straight fish and seafood. Yeah, some of it's fried. There's fried calamari for sure, but there's also there's oven baked salmon, there's oven baked trout, there's a fresh seafood salad. It's like these are fine, and so we don't live the typical Italian Sunday sugo, Sunday nonna life like we used to, or that you see in the movies, that you see online, where there's arancini everywhere, there's fried foods everywhere, there's so many baked treats and baked goods. Like, we never did that every single day. We used to do that every weekend, but it's genuinely changed now because of just health awareness. And by my mom doing it, by my sister doing it, by my other sister doing it, my dad's half and half, but with the right intention. And then me, it's like, if you go my parents' cupboards, you won't see any more cereal boxes. You won't see hot chocolate packets. You won't see frozen packaged goods in their freezer. It's just real whole foods. The shift has become normal now.
What are most people in your from what you see? Like, what are people getting wrong as it relates to their nutrition, broadly speaking?
Great question. People are getting wrong with the calculation of things, right? I don't think we have to be so nitpicky with how many calories is in this tea, or oh, I had 6 steaks this week, so now if Saturday comes and I can have fried chicken all I want. Like, I really don't look at life in a calculative way. It's like, just normalize it, because you're kind of living in a diet at that point, almost. If everything's so calculated, I look at things really where it's like, yeah, we're having chicken, broccoli, and rice. It's just it's normal. We should be having that. I'm not saying that everybody has to be a gym bro eating chicken, broccoli, and rice, but it could get tiring for some people. For some others, no, though. For others, people need the calculation and they need the guidance to keep them on track, which is fine. For me, it's just become automatic now. It's like last night we got back from a 3-day trip up north at a cottage, and it's like we're tired. It's like we could have easily gotten sushi for takeout, gotten pizza for takeout, and it's like, no, it's like the store closes in 2 hours. Let's stop by the grocery store. We got ourselves 2 packs of ground beef. We got ourselves 2 things of Swiss chards, and we made some rice. And we felt so good afterwards, right? It's like we made some ground beef sauté with some onions, a little beef bowl with some hot peppers. We had the rice on the side, boiled Swiss chard. It's like, it's just, to me, it becomes normal. And when it becomes normal, I think that's when you don't start to think about the 5 or 10%, like we mentioned before, of having the one Oreo cookie at tomorrow's party. I don't think about it.
So what do you think about in the context of, like, what are your challenges currently? Somebody who's gotten to this place, or we'll say the place that you're at. Again, it's not perfection, but what does Joey struggle with these days?
Yeah, well, the biggest struggle, and we touched on it before, was the perfectionism, right? Especially in my life with the content that I make. A lot of people perceive me as perfect, and so the problem with perfectionism is that it can drift you the wrong way, because you become self-conscious afterwards, and you start to think like, oh, like if I'm out in public, if I'm out at a party, I can't have that Oreo cookie. People are gonna see me eating the Oreo cookie and stuff, and it looks like a bad image, and it looks like I'm preaching the wrong word. And so it's like, really, with the health world online, or the holistic health world online, there's a lot of perfectionism, unfortunately, that goes around. And it's like, but it's even to the tiniest details of, like, I posted a video a few days ago of how to open a pomegranate, or how to cut open a pomegranate, and someone was talking about how the board wasn't properly oiled, and there's some chips of the wood that are going to get into the pomegranate, or that, like, the handle of my knife was plastic. So it's like, but like these are really extreme pointers, and it's like it's good for content for sure, but it's like people really live to these extremes, and that's where it can become unhealthy.
Yeah, and thank you for the last word there, calling it unhealthy, right? It's almost like counterproductive and contradictory in nature, really, to what you are trying to promote, which is a healthy lifestyle. And what I think so many of us can start to, we overswing the pendulum. And I think the moment you start stressing about that stuff or being self-conscious about that stuff, well, now you're just creating a whole other area of your life that is not optimally healthy, which is, what's going on between the ears, what's going on emotionally. How is this impacting your relationship with food? Are you, fighting demons now in a whole other arena because you're trying to fit this box of perfection? So really love what you said there. And, I'll go back to, a piece of advice I received in a course that I'm taking, which is measuring success by how much fun you're having.
Yeah.
And in the moment where living healthily stops being fun for you, like kind of what Covey was describing earlier, where, like, Buddy's looking forward to making some sweet potato, right? Like, he's going to actually have fun making that meal. Like, that right there, I think, is the wheelhouse, like, sweet spot, right? It's not this idea of achieving perfection. and I'm kind of rambling on because I'm pretty passionate about this topic. I noticed that overswing of the pendulum for myself, where I just created this whole other set of obstacles and heavy weight of pressure to just like, starting to become a health coach. Like, oh, now I can't have the one Oreo, right? Like, no, that's not what that means. It's just funny how the mind plays games, Joey.
No, it's so true. It's like you said, when you go way overboard and it becomes unhealthy, it could be dangerous. I mean, it's not the way. It's you have to have fun with it. And again, for my girlfriend and I, it's become the norm now. So it's just, we don't look at it in any forceful way. We don't look at it in any unhealthy way. It's just the norm. And so it's like, yeah, don't be shy of the Oreo cookie for sure. But it's also about like, don't have the entire box. And it's like
which by the way, shout out Oreo catching a ton of strays in this conversation. You've been a real trooper. We're not doing that brand any favors today, so shout out to Oreo.
It's always the first example that comes to mind. But Matt, like even your example with you loving and wanting to go cook the sweet potatoes. I mean, dude, incredible. It's like that's become your norm now.
Y'all have no idea how excited I am. I'm like, all right. No, because, I mean, first of all, Japanese sweet potato, phenomenal. I have one every single day. But, I mean, yeah, make it fun. It really is fun. I put that in the air fryer. I got 20 minutes. In that 20 minutes, I'll vacuum. I'll put on some, I'm actually, in my faith era as well, Joey. So I'll throw on some, like, worship music. And I'll just be rocking and rolling. Then I'll get the ground beef cooking when I got about 10 minutes left in the air fryer. We cook it. I'll put some Parmigiano Reggiano for my Italians out there like you two. Throw it on there. And like, I just sit down just like so filled with gratitude and thanks and appreciation for that meal that just fuels me. That gives me so much energy. So I think, I do love that quote of MD of like, define success by how much fun you're having.
That's great.
And like lasting fun, right? Not just like quick hits of adrenaline type fun. I think like lasting, sustainable ways of living where you encourage some play and fun in your life. Because I mean, we only get to do this thing called life once. So.
Yeah, 100%, man. And you know what? I like what you just said about what a thought that came to mind was you were just saying like how you're gonna put some music on now, you're gonna cook, you're gonna like 20 minutes, you're gonna vacuum, take a shower, whatever it is, and it's. A big point that I see or a big argument that I receive often is people don't have the time that we have. And so what I say to that, for anyone listening, if you don't have the same time to get on your health journey or to get serious about your health or to start cooking, specifically for the cooking example, this is what I used to do when I was working for a corporation and when I was also a student was cook in batches. So it's kind of like meal prepping, but it's really just about having enough food for the next day, right? So at least you're cooking one every 2 days or one every 3 days, right? So if you're making chicken thighs and broccoli and carrots and potatoes, make it as if you're eating for the next 4 meals. Don't make for one. Don't make 3 chicken thighs. Make 10 chicken thighs. That way your lunch the next day is prepared, your dinner the next day is prepared, and then you can cook the following day. Just a small tip.
I think that's super practical.
And if you don't like leftovers, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, well then you got no excuse. I mean, then cook every meal, figure it out. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just, it comes down to what you basically priorities. Like what is of most, what do you prioritize most? For like you said, for me, it's really high on the list is my health because I know it allows me to show up better in all areas of my life. Do you have anything you want to wrap up with before I ask Joey the last question of the day here?
I do. Not to step in front of a fun cliffhanger of last fun question of the conversation, but one of the things that I was recently thinking about is because you just talked about like time management, right? And a lot of what we're talking about is just like eating food from the earth. And what's crazy to me is that we've gotten to this point where you can make a business creating content, just promoting eating natural food, which like if you think about 1,000 years ago, there was no other option. So have you thought about that, Joey? Like, have you thought about just how much work we are having to do as a people to now like course correct our larger society? And does that feel like part of your mission right now? Like, what is driving you Besides obviously being able to generate an income from this, but like, is there a deeper mission that you hold kind of North Star in front of your mind?
It's funny, a buddy recently told me, he's like, man, he's like, you're always, crapping on Coca-Cola and crapping on soda and junk food, but he's like, bro, he's like, if they stop producing and stop selling to the people, he's like, you're out of a job. And he's right. To a certain extent, he's right, because that's often what I do is I'll make videos of showing what's inside a certain product, unhealthy product, or showing how much sugar's in an unhealthy drink. So yeah, if they're not on the market anymore, I might be jobless. But what's really driving me is the awareness. Is like there are so many products out there that keep coming out, and so it's like that gives me an opportunity to make a video on. Yeah, it's fun, it's entertaining, it's part of my work, but it's also like, like these guys aren't stopping. Like I saw a post 2 weeks ago showing, I think it was Sonic's new holiday milkshakes, and there's like 5 different milkshakes, and it's like cherry, lime, chocolate, soda, whatever bull crap is in it, and it's like, oh my gosh. And it's like, I look at the nutrition and facts instantly, and it's like, this thing has 83 grams of sugar. Are you guys kidding me? 83 grams of sugar in a milkshake? I'm like, bro, I'm like, that's literally a bottle of Coke, a 16 or 20 ounce bottle of Coke, right? It's like 500 ml. That 1.5. So it's like everyone knows that drinking a bottle of Coke is unhealthy because it's Coca-Cola, but you wouldn't think twice about that when drinking this milkshake. And then someone's gonna argue by saying, "Oh, well, it's just once in a while," for sure. But it's like, man, it's a bit absurd for once in a while, right? Make your own milkshake at home. Get some real chocolate ice cream. Get some cocoa powder. Get some whole milk, and blend it up. And so, the driving factor is really just like these companies coming out with more and more products that are just more and more absurd, arguably absurd. And so it just gives me more opportunity to create videos and to like spread more awareness. And it's also like people need to know and hear the message every single day. That's how I learned. And that's how I got to the other side of the grass, the greener side of the grass, because I kept seeing the same videos, kept reading the same books, kept watching the same people on YouTube. So it's like you can see it once and you're on to the next reel, you're on to the next TikTok. But if you keep seeing it, you start to apply it into your life. You start to be like, okay, let me give it a shot. Let me try saying no. Let me try adding less sugar to my coffee. So it's like for me, I'm an old record player just going and going and going, but I know that there are people that are going to apply it eventually because they need to get this message like stuck into their brain before they even try it.
So to wrap up, Joey, and you've been great. I got a doozy for you. What are you most proud of? This is just for a broader life question. What are you most proud of?
Broader life question, so like not work
could be anything.
Not. Oh wow.
I mean, it could be work related if that's your answer.
Wow, never been asked that before. It might sound cliche, and I might.
They're usually cliche answers. That's the thing. That's why they're so great.
I'm really proud of like strengthening my faith and serving others in many ways. And I think like that's what my duty is, and that's what a lot of our duties are here, is to help and serve others. So I'm really proud of myself for doing that, and to keep on doing that, and to keep helping and serving others, because we're all brothers and sisters. So we all need help, and we all need pushing and shoving in a good way here and now, every now and then.
Oh, I love that, man. All right, Joey Wellness, everybody. Joey, thank you.
Thank you, guys.